We have an area that I brought up with our generals 4 or 5 weeks ago where Taliban is here, ISIS is here, and they're fighting each other. I said, why don't you let them fight? Why are we getting in the middle of it? I said, let them fight. They're both our enemies. Let them fight. Sir, we want to do it. They go in and they end up fighting both of them. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. I think I would have been a good general, but who knows?
Bird, tell us how you feel about his exit theory. Should we let the Taliban and ISIS fight it out, and then go in and pick up the pieces?
So narrowly, I think when the president's speaking there, he's missing the idea that presumably if somewhere in Afghanistan, ISIS and the Taliban are up against each other, that if they just fight each other to the death, that's going to solve the broader problems in Afghanistan. Clearly, that's not the case. I think the problem is that the president, again, is addressing this as if things started when he became president. But one of the arguments for staying in is that if we could have gotten out, we would have.
What about him as a general, Meghan? Good or bad, or what?
Sure, I'll tell you what I think. As a general, he says he would have been great, but alas, he had to accept his fate, as Spurs held him back, and so he did lack the courage to step up to the plate.
Meghan, I guess you don't think he would have been a good general. How about you, Chan?
You know, it is so unbelievable. Like, most presidents have read a book before they became president and know something about the history of the region, or they listen to people, or they read briefing papers. The idea that the whole story there is ISIS and Taliban fighting each other and let's just leave is so incredible that it's really hard to know how to address it. The other point, though, is isolationism, like letting the rest of the world go to hell, that has a deep and enduring appeal in the United States. And a lot of people will listen to that very truncated history and think, you know what? The hell with them all. Let's just leave.
What about you, Sarah? I'm sure you have an opinion on our president.
Simply, what the president said is just nonsense, and we can sit here and try to ascertain some kind of logic to what he said. But what is very clear here is that he's not listening to anybody that works for him. We have a national security advisor that I hope is trying to brief him on the reality of counterterrorism strategy. He has a Secretary of State who is just meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel and assuring him that we would continue to fight Iran even if we withdrew from Syria. And in this whole nonsensical press conference, the president literally said the opposite of what his entire team is saying. So at this point, it's really unclear to me why the president bothers holding a cabinet meeting, holding a situation room briefing, if he's just going off and making stuff up.